Forging Our State Together, a film about Vorarlberg state politics. Vorarlberg, our state. Our state of Vorarlberg extends from the Arlberg to Lake Constance. Together with its three neighbours, it numbers among the premium regions of Europe. Vorarlberg wins acclaim for its strong economy full of innovative companies and attractive places to work. The rich diversity of its nature, the wide-ranging educational offerings, the colourful cultural landscape, and the active cultivation of traditions make this state especially livable for its 400,000-strong population. So that Vorarlberg remains successful, its society, economy, and politics must work together. The Landhaus in Bregenz is a central venue for this collaboration. Here is where the state parliament and state government work hand in hand. Together with the population, they envision and shape the future of our state.
Was Vorarlberg besonders auszeichnet, sozusagen der innere Zusammenhalt bildet, ist die Fähigkeit, eine Gemeinschaft zu bilden und eine starke Identität zu haben. Das setzt voraus, dass man kooperieren kann in vielen Fragen der Entwicklung, der Wirtschaft, des Klimaschutzes, der Wasserkraft, der Energieautonomie. Es gibt viele Themen der Zukunft. Die sind nur lösbar, wenn die Leute zusammenhalten und wenn die Parteien zusammenarbeiten. Einstimmiger Beschluss zum Beispiel 2050, ein sehr großes Ziel, weit hinaus energieautonom zu sein. Das sind Dinge, die immer auch möglich waren über die Parteigrenzen hinweg. Oder hier am Bodensee, engste Kooperation im Bodenseeraum, der Schutz unserer Wasserressourcen. Das sind Dinge, die gingen immer einstimmig in diesem Lande. Wir müssen zusammenhalten und so in die Zukunft schauen.
State parliament and state government, their roles in the structure of democracy.
Demokratie bedeutet Freiheit für uns alle.
In Demokratien gibt es freie Wahlen und Parlamente.
Machtkontrolle und Grundrechte.
Meinungs- und Pressefreiheit.
In Austria, we live in a representative democracy. The power derives from its citizens. That is the way it is written in our federal constitution. But since not everyone can actively contribute to every decision, we elect politicians. Sometimes we also engage in the process more directly, for example, in the case of a referendum. In a democracy, we all share the same rights and freedoms. These include, above all, freedom of personal opinion, of the press, and to vote. In open elections, we can make our own decision without anyone influencing or controlling us. The democratic principle of separation of powers prevents individuals, parties, or institutions from becoming overly powerful. Even at state level, state authority is separated into three branches that operate independently, while also controlling and regulating one another. The parliaments, which include the Vorarlberg State Parliament, constitute the so-called legislative branch, the authority which generates the laws. It resolves laws and controls the executive branch. The administrations, which include the Vorarlberg state government, constitute the so-called executive branch, the authority which carries out the laws. It ensures that the laws are obeyed and conducts state administration. The courts, which include the district courts, the state court, and the state administrative court, constitute the so-called judicial branch, the authority which declares what is legally rightful. It issues penalties when someone does not heed the law and decides in legal disputes. The Republic of Austria is a federal national state, which means that the states transfer part of their responsibilities and competencies in legislation and administration to the national government. The remaining responsibilities are carried out by the states themselves. The state parliament guarantees our autonomy as an independent state. Together with the state government, it ensures that the interests of the Vorarlberg population are given the best possible consideration. State Parliament elections, procedure and effects.
Möchten Sie etwas?
Ja, danke schön.
In den Landtagswahlen wählen wir die Abgeordneten, unsere politischen Vertreter.
Wir entscheiden uns für einen politischen Weg.
Wir vergeben Vorzugsstimmen.
The right to vote is a fundamental right. The right to be a part of the decision-making process. In the state parliament elections, we elect the mandates who will represent us in the state parliament and make political decisions. The representatives are elected for a period of 5 years. Only Austrian citizens are entitled to vote. They must either have their main residence in Vorarlberg or have moved abroad within the last 10 years. Only people at least 16 years of age are entitled to vote. Casting their vote takes place at polling stations of the communities or by postal votes. The groups competing for your vote, the political parties, compose electoral registers in which their candidates are placed. These registers are reproduced adjacent to each other on one single ballot paper. About 2 weeks before the election, we receive the ballot papers. On election day, we cast our vote for the party which we believe best represents our interests. So-called preference votes for individual persons of that party can also be cast. In this way, we influence which persons on the electoral registers receive a mandate. After the votes cast have been counted, the 36 mandates are distributed to the competing parties in accordance with the proportional representation principle. A greater number of votes leads to more representatives in the parliament, which means a higher degree of influence over the decisions. The state parliament consists of 15 representatives from the Volkspartei, 11 from the FPÖ, 4 from the Grünen, 3 from the SPÖ, and 3 from NEOS. State Parliament, its composition and its responsibilities.
Der Landtag beschließt Landesgesetze und das Landesbudget.
Er kontrolliert die Landesregierung.
Der Landtag ist Sprachrohr für alle Vorarlbergerinnen und Vorarlberger.
Er entwickelt Visionen wie die Energieautonomie 2050.
The state parliament comprises 36 representatives, which constitute the plenum. The forming of opinion in the plenary assembly takes the form of a resolution. For resolutions to come about, a majority of representatives is required to be present. The representatives stem from a variety of regions and are of varying ages. They have varied professions, diverse lifetime experiences, and visions. They bring forward their own point of view and their ideas. They work towards solutions which will be carried out by the majority and through their resolutions pursue a particular political path, such as the so-called Energy Autonomy 2050 initiative. All the representatives who belong to the same political party constitute a state parliamentary group. Groups of at least 3 members have the right to form a state parliamentary club and elect a leader. In the first session of the state parliament following the elections, the so-called constituent session, the state parliament president, the first and second vice president are elected by the representatives. The president represents the state parliament outwardly. In the sessions, he takes the chair, grants the right to speak to the representatives, and ensures that the rules are respected. The president, the first and the second vice president constitute the executive committee. Together with the 5 group leaders of the parliamentary clubs, they constitute the steering committee, which advises the president, especially in planning. After the Executive Committee, the State Parliament elects the state government. This governing body is responsible to the State Parliament and can be dismissed by it. Its work is ongoingly monitored by the representatives. One instrument to exercise such control is a parliamentary inquiry. Individual representatives can address such inquiries to members of the state government to obtain information regarding certain themes or specific questions. The state government carries full responsibility to answer them. Parliamentary committees of inquiry are a further instrument of control. Its task is to examine and investigate purported shortcomings in the state administration. Apart from the election and supervisory control of the state government, the state parliament also has other key responsibilities. It resolves state laws. The state parliament is responsible wherever the national government is not, particularly in areas such as construction and spatial planning, nature protection, hospitals and kindergartens. The state parliament also decides the financial means which the state government has available for the state administration. Currently, the state budget amounts to approximately 2.5 billion euros annually. The state parliament controls whether the state government utilizes the budget funds efficiently, economically, and appropriately. It also supervises whether the state administration is working rightfully. In fulfilling this task, the state parliament is supported by the State Court of Audit and the State Ombudsman, both independent bodies of the parliament. The contents of state parliament's resolutions are prepared by the 13 committees. These are topic-specific subgroups comprising 14 representatives in which political views are exchanged and compromises are found. This is often accomplished in cooperation with experts. One of these committees is the Energy Policy Committee. At its meetings, the state's strategic goal, Energy Autonomy 2050, was examined and developed in collaboration with experts before the plenary assembly was making the landmark decision. The Directorate is the business centre of the State Parliament, which ensures that it is able to fulfil its responsibilities smoothly. The State Parliament bears political responsibility for the interests of its state citizens beyond the state's borders. It participates in national legislation by electing 3 federal councillors who advocate for the state's interests on the national level. Together with the state government, it also brings the interests of Vorarlberg into discussions within the European Union.
Der Vorarlberger Landtag ist der Garant für die Unabhängigkeit unseres Bundeslandes. Neben seinen klassischen Aufgaben sehe ich ihn aber vor allem auch als Sprachrohr für unsere Bevölkerung. Wir nehmen Fragestellungen, Themen, Ideen auf, diskutieren sie im Landtag und finden dazu auch Lösungen. Und wenn wir kompetenzrechtlich einmal nicht zuständig sind, der Ball also in Wien oder in Brüssel liegt, dann erarbeiten wir eine Vorarlberger Position, verschaffen ihr somit Gehör und bringen sie an den entsprechenden Stellen vor.
State laws, how they're generated.
Warum ist das?
Ja, ja. Das ist das Differenz. Ein Fisch.
Landesgesetze regeln die Familienförderung.
Wie und wo wir bauen dürfen.
Und wie die Natur geschützt wird.
Laws which exercise great influence over the cohabitation of people in Vorarlberg are resolved in the state parliament. Proposals for state laws can be made by at least 2 representatives of the state parliament, by the state government, by one of the parliamentary committees, or by a referendum. Such legislative proposals are worked out by experts together with those affected and then made public. All citizens are invited to propose alterations. Once a proposal was introduced in the State Parliament, it is passed from the plenary to the Legal Affairs Committee. There, the contents are examined and changes or alterations may be undertaken. Following these consultations, the proposal is submitted to the plenum for debate. In order for a law to be resolved, the majority of the representatives must vote for its approval. In the case of constitutional laws, a two-thirds majority is required. The state parliament president and the state governor thereupon confirm that the law has been passed legally. A law comes into effect once it has been published in the official state law gazette. It is also possible that it becomes a law which comes into effect at a later or even at an earlier date. One example for a valid state law is the electricity economy law. Since 2020, small-sized solar energy systems have been permit-free. Thereby, constructing such solar systems by house owners is made more attractive and the percentage of renewable energies increases, all to the benefit of Energy Autonomy 2050. State government, its composition, its responsibilities.
Die Landesregierung verwaltet das Land.
Sie genehmigt Kraftwerke. Sie baut Krankenhäuser und Straßen.
Fördert Kultur und Bildung.
Sie hilft Menschen in Not.
The state government, elected by the state parliament, comprises 7 members. The state governor, the deputy state governor, and 5 other state councillors. The state government is elected for a term of 5 years. The state governor represents the state outwardly and leads the state government. Each member of the state government is responsible for defined areas which are negotiated among the governing parties. The state government is the supreme administrative body of the state. It executes the laws which are passed in the state parliament and also certain national laws. It manages the assets and the finances of the state and develops guidelines for funding. We encounter its actions and decisions in everyday life in many different ways. The state government builds vocational schools, state roads, and finances non-profit housing. It issues administrative notices for nursing homes and operating facilities and conducts environmental compatibility assessments. It develops funding possibilities for meaningful guidance of the economy and agriculture. The state, for example, funds thermic solar energy systems. That too is a measure to enhance the value of climate protection and the Energy Autonomy 2050 agenda. In carrying out its administrative tasks, the state government is supported by the employees of the Office of the Vorarlberg State Government and by the local district authorities. The administration defines itself as partner of the population.
Wir haben uns für Vorarlberg ein großes Ziel gesetzt. Wir wollen der chancenreichste Lebensraum für Kinder und Jugendliche sein. Dazu gehört ziemlich viel, zum Beispiel ein Land von Arbeitsplätzen, von gut ausgebildeten Fachkräften, guten Schulen, guter Lehrlingsausbildung, stark in der Exportwirtschaft. Aber es gehört auch mehr dazu. Es ist das Stichwort Lebensraum gefallen. Das heißt ja auch, wir schauen auf die Natur. Wir müssen darauf achten, dass Klimaschutz und Wirtschaft miteinander verbunden werden können. Und zu guter Letzt, jede Gesellschaft braucht eine innere Kraft. Und das heißt, der Ehrenamt und Freiwilligkeit, die Beteiligung von Bürgern, das ist ganz entscheidend. Wenn Sie das interessiert, dann machen Sie einfach mit.
Let us forge our future.
Zusammenarbeit ist ein wesentlicher Schlüssel zum politischen Erfolg. Deshalb fassen wir gerade im Vorarlberger Landtag, wenn es um wichtige, um zukunftsweisende Entscheidungen geht, vielfach einstimmige Beschlüsse. Die Zusammenarbeit ist uns aber auch mit Ihnen, mit der Bevölkerung sehr wichtig. Treten Sie deshalb mit Ihren Ideen, mit Ihren Vorschlägen an uns heran und machen Sie stets von Ihrem ureigensten demokratischen Recht, dem Wahlrecht, Gebrauch. In diesem Sinne gehen wir es gemeinsam an, gestalten wir unser Land, gestalten wir unsere Zukunft.